What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be doing our final breakdown of our top 10 do not draft players for the 2022 fantasy football season. So definitely make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree? What other players would you put on this list? Along with any other questions you guys might have, we will do our best to answer them all. And lastly, make sure to check out the 2022 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Everything you can want at a great value. Top 150 overall player rankings, standard and PPR formats, individual player bios, tiers, projections, along with general fantasy advice. All those details in the description. But with that being said, let's get into it. And as you can see, we've got our list pulled up here. A quick note, we're going to be focusing in mainly on the running back and wide receiver position. And regardless of the format, PPR, standard, these are still all guys that I am avoiding. So with that being said, let's kick it off with the number one name on this list. That is Cam Akers of the LA Rams, running back. He was kind of the poster child of this breakdown that we did back in, June maybe? But he's still on this list. And things have changed since then. There's been preseason action, there's been camp battles. So I definitely do think that this list needed some finalizing. We're only a couple of weeks away from the start of the season, but what hasn't changed is Akers being still a part of these guys that I'm not drafting. And it comes down to a couple of reasons. First and foremost, his price tag right now, still way too high in my opinion. He's being drafted somewhere in the third round, which I think is ludicrous because people are avoiding the situation and the facts of the matter that he's coming back from an Achilles injury, one of the most brutal injuries to come back from, and a really tough one for the running back position. And yes, I understand he rehabbed last season miraculously, came back at the end of the year, but what you can't deny is that he just wasn't there health-wise. What you need for an RB1, the quickness, the acceleration, the explosion, the cutting, it wasn't there. That's why the Rams turned back to a guy in, Darrell Henderson that was getting it done for them at the beginning of the year during the playoffs in the Super Bowl. And he was a lot more effective. And on top of that, the Rams themselves have said, they view it as a situation where they have two RB1s, Akers and Henderson. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Henderson ends up outproducing Akers across the board. Why get Cam Akers like in the third round, an awful reach, when you can get Henderson 8 rounds later, something like that, when, I think best case scenario, this is a running back by committee, which on top of that is another reason why you should avoid this backfield. To me, Akers is still a massive, massive pass. But then let's go on to Antonio Gibson. Again, another guy that was kind of tentatively on this list last time, but now inching his way more and more so up in terms of reasons why you shouldn't be drafting him. Gibson, I know there's a lot of truthers out there, but from what we've seen in the preseason, the guy hasn't been getting the usage. And everything that Ron Rivera said before when he drafted a guy like Brian Robinson, that he wanted to have that 1-2 punch like he did in Carolina with Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams, seems to be true. Robinson has been getting those first-team carries. Gibson being used on special teams. This smells like a running back by committee, a situation where Gibson isn't the pass-catching running back. That's McKissick, and he's going to be vultured by Brian Robinson, and just even more so, a situation to avoid. He's a guy that has been getting nicked up here and there. So now there's depth at the position. It's not a situation that I like at all. There's a reason why his ADP is falling to like after the fourth round sometimes. But to me, he's just way too huge of a risk for anyone that has him still as a top 20 running back. I would just rather go elsewhere with it. I'd rather go wide receiver. I just think he is way, way too inconsistent. He's going to have a lot of up and down games. He's going to be just way too touchdown dependent. For that reason, I'm out on Gibson this year. Next up, we go to Elijah Mitchell of the San Francisco 49ers. And I will say this right now. Look, if there's any one player on this list where I would be maybe willing to make an exception on, and go with them, it would be Elijah Mitchell. But here are all the reasons why he has me very nervous and why I'd rather probably pass on him. So first and foremost, we know it's going to be the Trey Lance show now for the San Francisco 49ers. And I've said this before. If we can all admit that the reason why Trey Lance is getting drafted as a top 10 quarterback is because of his legs, then we should all objectively be able to say, look, the other weapons here, in terms of pass catchers, in terms of rushers, aka Elijah Mitchell, their upside is going to decrease. Elijah Mitchell naturally will not have as many rushing opportunities, as high of a ceiling in the rushing department, in the touchdown rushing department, as he would have when it was Jimmy Garoppolo last season. On top of that, Elijah Mitchell, a little bit banged up right now. What do we know about the San Francisco 49ers? They have a plethora of running backs. They do not repeat seasons where they have back-to-back like RB1s on their team. They have drafted rookie running backs. They have a guy like a Jeff Wilson in there as well. Elijah Mitchell, not a pass-catching running back. All those things, the depth at the running back position, the inclusion of Trey Lance, who's going to be a run-heavy quarterback, make me want to pass on Elijah Mitchell. I just don't think he is going to reproduce what we saw last season. And, it's tough, but I think he's kind of one-dimensional here. Again, if there's any one of these guys that I would take a chance on, because I do believe in this offense and the head coaches here, it'd probably be him, but I just don't see him returning RB1 upside, even high-end RB2 upside. I think it's going to be a lot of up and down performances. Again, if there's anyone that I might be wrong on this list about, I will admit it'll probably be Mitchell, but right now he just still has me a little bit nervous. But let's move on to the number 4 guy here, Amari Cooper. Cooper is somebody that he's taken a big nosedive, let's be honest. And the reason is it's not his fault. It's all about Deshaun Watson. First, it was a situation where we were waiting to see what the suspension for Watson would be. Then 6 games. Then we're like, okay, is it going to be 6 games? Or is the NFL going to potentially file a grievance and say, we want it more? That's exactly what happens. It's now up to 11 games. That is, that's 66% of the fantasy season right there. Then when Deshaun Watson comes back, there might be some rust, issues like that. I don't trust the Cleveland Browns passing offense with Jacoby Brissett under center. Amari Cooper was inconsistent to begin with a guy like Dak Prescott. Now with Brissett there for pretty much the majority of the year, I'm not willing to take a chance on him at all. You're going to have to wait until you get some decent performances, consistent performances, until, after that 11-week suspension is gone. And that's just way, way too long, basically sitting on a guy that definitely has, the skills and the upside. But until that point, I'd honestly put in the wide receiver 3 category, low-end wide receiver 2. And even when Deshaun comes back, I think there's going to be that adjustment period. So for that reason, I'm out on Amari Cooper and really all the pass catchers in Cleveland. Next up, we go to Miles Sanders. And this is a similar situation kind of with Elijah Mitchell. Sanders right now banged up. There's a lot of other running backs there. Gainwell, Scott, and you've got Jalen Hurts, who, similar to a Trey Lance, is going to be a run-first quarterback. He's going to take away a lot of opportunities from Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, even when he was healthy last season, there was weird usages there. The Eagles didn't want to fully commit to him. I think that's going to be even more so the case this season. They've added weapons like A.J. Brown, so maybe they take away, kind of the preference from the rushing attack as well. These are all reasons why I'm out on Miles Sanders. I think he's going to be, again, way, way too inconsistent. And I'd rather just, even though he could be a decent value, way too many things working against him. I'm passing on Sanders this season. Afterwards, we go to Damien Harris of the New England Patriots. Definitely a more standard-suited running back. I wouldn't be considering him in PPR regardless, but what has me worried about Damien Harris is Ramondre Stevenson and just the New England Patriots, utilization of the running back position when you look at it years past. Yes, Damien Harris was great last season. He had a lot of success, but a lot of his success came in like chunks versus very bad teams. And before Ramondre Stevenson kind of broke out and when he was a little bit banged up, a lot of touchdown success. I think you're going to see regression there. I think from what we've seen in the preseason and in camp, Ramondre Stevenson is really closing the gap, and it's getting back to a running back by committee. I think it's going to be close to a 50-50 split. Harrison doesn't offer pretty much anything as a pass catcher, you're going to be relying on touchdowns here, and there's going to be vulturing. It's going to be very difficult to predict which running back to start on a week-to-week basis. For that reason, I'm out on Damien Harris. Afterwards, we go to Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks. And look, I love Tyler Lockett. I think he's a great talent, but what we can't ignore is that Lockett would go hot and cold before when Russell Wilson was on the Seahawks. Now Wilson is gone. Now you're going to have either Drew Lock or Geno Smith throwing you the football. Look, we don't have to go all that far back to see what that scenario looks like of Lockett and Metcalf without Wilson. For Lockett, it was disastrous. He tends to be a big play guy. Maybe boom or bust to an extent. And when you take away a really good quarterback and insert an inconsistent guy, a subpar guy in Smith or Lock, that's going to get even worse like we saw last season. To me, he is going to be way too hard to trust. If you thought he was in other years prior, now it's going to be tenfold. So for that reason, unless there is a quarterback upgrade here, I just can't take a chance on Tyler Lockett. I think DK Metcalf has the build of that more physical, bigger red zone presence type of guy that below average quarterbacks are going to look for, aka the current quarterbacks for the Seattle Seahawks. So for that reason, Tyler Lockett, again, another ding there. Then we go to Cordero Patterson, one of the fantasy darlings of last year. A big reason why is because he had a designation as a running back and wide receiver. Probably going to be the same situation this season, but the Falcons much worse offensively without Matt Ryan. On top of that, they have added a guy in Drake London at the wide receiver position. Kyle Pitts improving after another year. They've added running back talent in the draft. Cordero Patterson isn't going to see the same usage as he did last season, both as a rusher and as a pass catcher, in my opinion. Marcus Mariota, I don't believe in him. This offense doesn't have the same scoring upside as it did before. And, even last year at one point where teams kind of started to figure it out with Patterson, maybe when there was some wear and tear on him with his usage, he became benchable. And that's what I think we're going to see here for the majority of this season. Don't go chasing the production from last year. Don't get cute because of the running back wide receiver designation. Look elsewhere. Then we go to the second to last name here on our list. That is Chase Claypool of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Somebody that I think quickly is becoming the third wide receiver for the Steelers after Pickens, the rookie, is just looking very, very good for them. Deontay Johnson is, the top guy for the Steelers. But what worries me here the most is that, the quarterback situation is not one that I trust. Whether it's Pickett, whether it's Mitch Trubisky, neither one of those quarterbacks are going to be able to maintain multiple fantasy relevant wide receivers. And Claypool right now is looking like the number 3 guy on this offense. For that reason, I can't trust him. Sure, maybe he might think that he's very, very good himself. And, his rookie season, we saw some really nice upside, but I just don't think right now he's in a situation to succeed. And then finally, we've got Treylon Burks of the Tennessee Titans, a guy that I think similar to the running back position, rookie-wise, analysts always try and get cute with these rookies, whether it's running backs or wide receivers. I think Burks falls into that situation. Everyone was like, oh yeah, A.J. Brown is gone. Now it's going to be Treylon Burks, A.J. Brown 2.0. That's not going to happen for so many reasons. First and foremost, Ryan Tannehill has steadily declined little by little these last couple of years. I think we're going to see it again this season. On top of that, from everything we've seen so far in the preseason and the coaches, Burks is a guy that has really, really struggled, like to the point where Robert Woods, coming off an ACL, is ahead of him. Other rookie wide receivers selected after Burks, Phillips, are ahead of him. And again, this is a run-first offense. I don't trust the potentially number 3 wide receiver on the team to be fantasy relevant. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter if he was a high-end pick in the NFL draft. That doesn't translate to fantasy success. For that reason, I just can't trust Treylon Burks. But with that, we wrap up our updated list of The top 10 names you should not be drafting for this 2022 fantasy football season. As always, let us hear in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree? What other names would you put on this list, along with any other questions you guys might have? We will do our best to answer them all. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. And make sure to check out the 2022 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Everything you want at a great value, details in the description. But with that being said, we will see you guys in future videos.